Good morning, YouTube. How are you? Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. I don't know why I wait always to physically get on live and then start doing everything I'm doing, because if I don't, I'm gonna take forever to get on here. So please give me a second. So people are probably gonna hear some shuffling and banging in the background today as I'm on live. Hopefully we can remain focused on what it is that I came here to do, which is speak, which is something I definitely do not feel like, hold on one second. I gotta join this for myself. Okay. So let me start off. And the things that I feel conviction to do. I hope everybody is having the most blessed day that they can have. Give me a second. So I hope you guys are having a blessed day. Not easy at all. And when I do say this, I definitely feel it for people because, um, despite there being a lot of fake channels that talk about TIs or that talk about targeting and it's all fake, there are also a lot of real TIs going through real issues, and you can tell a real TI through and through. If you cannot tell a real target, you don't gotta be psychic to be able to tell who is really suffering versus who is pretending and mocking. This is not something that you can pretend. Doesn't matter how many channels you see, doesn't matter how many examples you hear, doesn't matter how much you mimic the topics. This is not something that you can mimic. This is not something that you can pretend. This is not something that you can go along with as if this is really your life, if it is not. This is something that you gotta be living in and you gotta understand from the inside. And I'll tell you, I would not have known how bad it was unless I was also a target. I would never have known just how difficult of a life this is, this life of persecution. And you can't talk to people unless you know what people are going through. So I just want, first of all, if you're a targeted person, I want you to know, as hard as it is, you gotta focus your mind to not expect understanding from people who don't feel it. And it could be people who are very close to you. If people do not feel just what it feels like to be under constant spiritual attack, to be constantly provoked, to be constantly blocked, to be all of the things together, slandered and all of it. If people haven't gone through it, I don't care if it's a psychologist, a psychiatrist, if they were paid to, they are not going to have the wherewithal to be able to sympathize. They can sympathize, but they cannot empathize. Sympathy is something from the outside, you hear it. And from a place of sympathy, you can try to understand where a person's coming from. And sympathy also leaves room to doubt where a person's coming from. Like, yeah, I hear you, but that sounds a little much. Yeah, I hear you, but that sounds a bit crazy. Yeah, I hear you, but. Whereas empathy leaves no room to deny. And because I am empathetic, I am more likely to tell someone when they complain that I understand, and I'm more likely to tell someone that you're not wrong. I'm more likely to say to someone, you are not wrong in how you feel. And the things that you are saying, I will not label them excuses. These are not excuses, these are valid reasons. When a person is, suicidal as a target, when a person sees no reason to live anymore, I cannot tell them that what they're feeling is an excuse. I want to give encouragement, but I also have to say, I understand. Because not that I understand you wanting to take your life. I'm not promoting that. I don't want to promote that. But I understand why you feel you're having a down moment right now. I understand. I can empathize in my heart because I've gone through it. Going through being targeted, going through the process of people trying to groom me to be a gang stalker for years, not just now, for years. Going through spiritual attacks that are consistent. Going through all the projections and all the horrible things that people go through makes it impossible for me to look at anyone and say, oh, well, you were making an excuse, you were a coward, you were this, you were that. These are things you say when you didn't actually go through it yourself. And when I first was going through this, I was saying, like, have I not done everything that God would have asked a person to do? Have I not turned the other cheek when I wanted to tell people about the very obvious things that I could say about them? Have I not maintained my peace? Have I not been a good person in my soul? Have I not loved people unconditionally? Have I not loved people who don't deserve it? Have I not protected my peace? Have I not been consistently praying, meditating, telling people about God, using my business platform? Let me tell you, a couple years ago, my business platform was literally when I woke up to come online every single morning. After I had prayed and meditated, my first thing I would say to people is, have you prayed or meditated today? And I would do polls. Have you prayed today? Have you meditated today? And some people would say they just meditate. Some people would say they pray. And I would literally go on a tangent about talking about God, and we must find peace, and we must be peaceful. And I don't know whether or not people took me seriously or not when I was talking, because so many people talk about God that they are almost like it's a false representation of God, because it's like talking about God but doing the opposite. And I used to be that too, because I started selling accessories at one point, but prior to selling the accessories, because I was selling clubwear. And that clubwear had come to a point, I promise you, it's like I was just selling things that were in service of darkness. It had come to a point. if I left my clothing, and this was the worst photo shoot ever had to happen, I left my clothing in the hands of, literally, I'll be upfront, and in the hands of a stripper and a videographer. And I arranged with a dealership, and when I got the video back, I was indebted to them. I had to pay, but the kind of twerking video I got back was horrendous. And I had paid for it. I ended up using it. I was embarrassed of it. I ended up taking it down, and that was the day, that was the point that I came to where I was like, look, I'm so mortified by this business that I have. I'm tired of it. I'm embarrassed of it. I remember saying that even at a birthday dinner that I had. I was like, I'm embarrassed of my business. Because I remember there was this other person who said the same. They're like, listen, I don't want to work with these people anymore. I'm embarrassed of this. I feel like I have to explain this as I try to transition to go other places. And you start realizing, it takes the targeting to start realizing years later you were being recruited to be a part of something. And that's why things only worked when you participated in that. You could only sell if you were selling to these kinds of people. You could only work if you were working with these kinds of people. Otherwise, they would not buy from you. You wouldn't get attention. So it takes a lot of discipline to say, I'm going to take the long route and I'm going to sell a different way because I don't want to be in promotion of this anymore. And it's the same thing coming on here talking about spirituality, where when I've talked about God in the past, I've had people say, I'm not, this is witchcraft, and I'm gonna wait on Jesus, and I'm gonna pray and all this kind of stuff, and we rebuke you and all this kind, because people are, and it's not people, it's one person, but people are, they're programmed. Even myself, I don't like the word witch. I have a weird relationship with it because the examples that are predominant in society are just not what someone would want to be a part of. And so maybe God wants that word reclaimed because God doesn't have an issue with the word. But, from what I see and what I've experienced, I have been mortified, and it hasn't been something that I have wanted to associate with because it's satanic. It's satanic worship. And I even found a page, and even today, this page came up where it was like Christian witches, and I thought it was basically going to be like what I believe in, Christians who also recognize spirituality as being extremely valid. And instead of that, it is people who believe that they are their own God. And that I have to unfollow because that is the beginning of satanic worship, is putting yourself as God. You will put yourself in a position where it's like I've talked about it before, how you walk down that line of satanic worship. Anyway, let me first read the Bible verse that I have to read, or that came up, that I think is appropriate today. So this is the epistle of Paul Titus. So this is Titus chapter 3, and this is nearing the end of the Bible. So we're nearing Peter and then Revelation. Titus only has 3 chapters, the entire book. It says, put them in mind to be subject to principalities and powers, to obey magistrates, to be ready to every good work, to speak evil of no man, to be no brawlers, but gentle, shewing all meekness unto all men. For we ourselves also were sometimes foolish, disobedient, deceived, serving divers lusts and pleasures, living in malice and envy, hateful and hating one another. But after that, the kindness and love of God our Savior toward man appeared, not by works of righteousness which we have done, But according to his mercy, he saved us by the washing of regeneration and renewing of the Holy Ghost, which he shed on us abundantly through Jesus Christ our Savior, that being justified by his grace, we should be made heirs according to the hope of eternal life. This is a faithful saying, and these things I will that thou affirm constantly, that they which have believed in God might be careful to maintain good works. These things are good and profitable unto men. But avoid foolish questions and genealogies and contentions and strivings about the law, for they are unprofitable and vain. A man that is a heretic after the first and second admonition, reject. So a man that basically is like a naysayer, questioning, looking for arguments, looking to provoke you. So a man that is an heretic after the first and second admonition, just reject it. Reject him, reject the conversation. Knowing that he that is such is subverted and sinneth, being condemned of himself, being condemned by himself. He's condemned himself. When I shall send Artemis unto thee, or Tychicus, be diligent to come upon me to Nicopolis, for I have determined there to winter. Bring Zenas the lawyer and Apollos on their journey diligently, that nothing be wanting unto them. And let ours also learn to maintain good works for necessary uses, that they be not unfruitful. All that are with me salute thee. Greet them that love us in the faith. Be with you all. Amen. Grace be with you all. Amen. So this is the word that came to me, and it does talk about being kind and being loving, because that's how God is to us. And you know, I definitely am not one who am against that at all, but I am one who walks a balanced path, neither fully left, neither fully right. And I did read a passage about this at one time. I just cannot remember what passage that is. I want to say, first and foremost, before I start out, nobody is perfect. And I used to strive for perfection, especially in the beginning of this journey. I used to strive to make sure I pray and make sure I this and make sure I that. And that was because it was the beginning of the journey. And the beginning of the journey is much easier than when you're in the middle of the journey. When you're drawing to the end of the journey is one of the hardest times, or to the end of a cycle is one of the hardest times that you're going to go through. And so I was like wanting to be perfect and striving for perfection, and I have since had to let that go, because each day is a new day and you don't know how this day is coming down, and you are just literally doing your best with what you have. If you look into whether it's my past or anybody else's past, you're gonna find a lot of things to mock, a lot of things to talk bad about, a lot of things to say we all did something. And this is again Titus chapter 3 verse 3, for we ourselves also were sometimes foolish, sometimes disobedient, sometimes deceived, sometimes serving divers lusts and pleasures, living in malice and envy, hateful and hating one another. I have to be honest with you, I have never been perfect, but I'm not a hateful person. I'm not an envious person. So these things I haven't participated in. And it's not to say that these emotions haven't come to summon me. They have. There have been things and times where I've seen people, I've seen, I wouldn't say necessarily accomplishments. It could be any particular thing. as we all have different things that we see of people, and you would want to think to yourself, oh my goodness, like I wish I had that and whatever, but I stop it right there, because from early on I always know like these feelings are unpleasant and uncomfortable, and I try my best not to let it things go that far. So I think that is one of the reasons why I have really felt entitled. Entitled is the correct word. Entitled to not suffer. Entitled to not go through things, because I said, well, I've done what has been asked of me. I have strived. And because you strive for what has been asked of you, you know that that is not easy. That's not an easy road. It is not easy to turn the other cheek. In fact, when you turn the other cheek, even God gets annoyed when you turn the other cheek, I've realized, because it's like, it's like it appears definitely that you lack boundaries. Even though you do have boundaries, it does appear that you don't. But really, what you don't want is the conflict. Really, what you don't want is to upset your spirit. But it does give people the impression that you have no boundaries, and so they feel that they should go further and further to attack you. And especially when people want your energy and they want you to focus on them, they're just gonna attack harder until you mention them, until you focus on them, until you argue with them, until you bicker with them. So ignoring people and trying to go your way is going to provoke demons inside of them that want attention, that want energy. I remember when someone was talking about witchcraft, they said that what they do is they provoke arguments with you, and during the argument is where they siphon your energy. And one thing I thank God that I've always been able to do is not argue. Not easy though. Not easy. There are a lot of people I would, they deserve to be told off. They deserve to be told off. So horrible what they've done. But this is not an easy road. Like the road of divinity, really, a lot of times what I'm trying to do is protect my divinity and my humanity. And, because your dignity is already on the cross, facing a little death, okay? Your dignity as a human being is constantly under attack. It is one thing to attack, and I notice this is strategic. It is one thing to attack a person's body, a person's soul, but to attack a person's dignity as a human being puts them in a very compromising situation, especially when you hold yourself to a particular standard. Now, previously, what used to happen was people would kind of make you feel like you're a goody two shoes, and who do you think you are that you have particular standards of yourself. When it comes to myself, I'll be upfront. When it comes to sexual behavior, I am not a person who believes that needs to be on Front Street. I don't want to watch it. I don't want to see other people do it. I don't watch porn. I don't want to talk about it. I just don't want to see those displays at all. I just feel like that is something that you keep between yourself and, whoever it is. However, and so because of that, I am constantly, if I'm not in a relationship, then, I keep to myself. And I think because of that, it's like when people have not succeeded in saying, well, who do you think you are? You're a goody two shoes, or you're this and that. Then they've turned it into, well, I'm judging other people and think I'm better than other people. And it's not just me. They do that to everybody who has that sort of idea. But regardless, you can't change that people are going to see things like that. But it is very important to protect yourself sexually, because this is how a lot of energy enters you. This is how people drain your energy. You will feel drained and depleted after being with certain people simply because you've exposed yourself to them sexually. And the most heinous of energies that is how they want it. It's like a surefire means of attaching to you. So it is not a matter of wanting to be better than people or look down on other people or judge people. It is for protection. I didn't know when I was younger that this was the reason why I felt this way. I definitely feel like lessons follow you through lifetimes. So who knows what's happened to you in another lifetime that you've come back with just certain feelings that you really stick to, like you stick to your guns with them. But I definitely have always been like this. I've been like this from a young age, and I definitely understand now why I've been like this. The other thing is that if you tend to be promiscuous, it is easier to make up rumors about you that you've slept around, or that, one of the rumors that people have tried to make up, I don't know necessarily maybe if about me, but definitely about other people, on this targeted journey, is that they were prostitutes, or this is how they supported themselves through sex work. And if you are a person who has constantly been in like in and out of, maybe not even in and out of relationships, but you've had multiple partners, this is an easier thing to stick to you. If you're a person who doesn't really date around, or keeps to yourself, or no one can at least truthfully say that they've slept with you, that they've been with you, it protects your reputation a little bit more, because one of the easiest ways to destabilize, especially a woman, is by saying erroneously that you are a sex worker. So on your targeted journey, you will notice that this is going to be one of the easier things that people can say. Now, I haven't personally experienced people saying that about me. I don't know what they're saying behind my back. I don't know. But I do know that people in my city have always branded me as very hardworking with my business, and I've been very hardworking. And people in my city kind of have a general impression of me. So I think whether or not everybody necessarily likes me, I definitely don't think that this is something that they would think. I've really been struggling with this business, and not struggling, but fighting with it, keeping up with the good fight as far as it goes and whatnot, working really hard at it. So, if it's been said, if it has happened, if it's been said, then I just definitely do not want any participation in justifying, or I literally of it, if it comes to me, I would feel whoever needs to believe it needs to believe it, because it's just I've been front and center with that. But that's one of those things where it's one of those things that, if you care about your reputation as a woman, you don't want people saying those things about you. And so that's part of that, why you want to be responsible sexually. I'm bringing up these things because I'm going to get to a point that I want to make in regards to it. Things like cleanliness, as far as cleanliness in your home, personal hygiene, cleanliness on your personal body. They say cleanliness is next to godliness, and the opposite is true. The inverted version is true, that dirty environments are a breeding ground for lower entities. So part of, you start seeing strategy in how people do things and how they attack you. So when they make you lazy and they occupy you with so many things, and you get sent so many low vibrations, you stop taking care of your physical health, you stop taking care of yourself, you stop taking care of your beauty, you stop taking care of your home. And a dirty home, a disorganized home, is a breeding ground for dark entities. So these entities now have the ability to hide around in places, in dark little corners. And I think the worst manifestation of it is when you start hoarding. The worst manifestation of it is when it gets to the point where the house is so jam-packed and there's things all over the place. You think of how you feel when you walk into a freshly clean environment and everything is open and new, and how you feel when you walk into a place where there's garbage everywhere and things packed up. Demonic entities suck away your energy and your time, that you don't have time to groom and take care of these things. And these are things where, when you hear about spiritual discipline, it just seems so difficult. It just seems like, my God, this is a lot of work. This is going to take over my life. You know, when you work with God, that spiritual discipline requires of you to, first of all, God likes you to be hardworking, because where we are on this plane requires work. There is no way you're going to lay on your laurels. You're living this life. This is what you came here for, is to experience life. And the experience of life helps you navigate problems. The experience of life helps you grow as a person. It evolves you whether or not you know. Every trial that you face, every problem and every cycle of problems prepares you for what God has in store for you, and you start again. So we look at it in tarot, it starts at 1. I technically think it starts at 0, but it'll start at 1 and it'll go all the way up to, I think, 9 or 10, where it's like you start on the fool's journey. You start like happy-go-lucky. It's a brand new cycle. You don't know what's in store. It is so exciting. By the time you get to the 5s, here comes the change from the bright, happy feelings. And then you go through your 7s, your 8s. It's a nightmare. And then you get all the way up. And then the cycle closes. There's a death to the cycle. The world card appears. New cycle opens. Fool card all over again. This is how we go through life. So thinking that your problems are done, it is, I have come to a place where I say to myself, I really do. On the hardest of days, I say that there, and I know, I'm not just saying it, I know that there are going to be days I'm going to wake up and I'm going to say, I kind of wish I was back there, because back there was easier. I am at a place in life already where I know that this is easier than what I'm walking into. I'm gonna have my fool's journey. I'm gonna have the happy phase. I'm gonna have the peaceful phase. But in the back of my mind, I know there is going to be a day when that hurricane comes and it hits so hard that I am going to miss the days that I'm having today. That helps me appreciate where I'm at, which is crazy because you're being gang stalked, you're being persecuted, you're being fought. How can you appreciate this? Well, because there were days when I had fights when I was younger, and spiritual battles, not fights, spiritual battles. And those spiritual battles, though they seemed rough then, cakewalk to what I'm going through now. And so there have been times where I've literally gotten attacked and laid in bed after an attack and like literally belly laughed, because I'm like, I remember when I used to think that little thing that I went through before was something crazy. But I am at the point with it now where it's like, no matter how much I'm attacked and how annoying it is, because that's really what it is. It's annoying. It's just annoying. It's like hearing a tap on a window every day. It's annoying, but then eventually your brain acclimatizes to it and you don't hear the tap anymore. But as annoying as it is, I know that there's going to be a day where I am going to wish that all I have to deal with was what I'm dealing with now. And it's so crazy because, well, you know, this is the thing. With all the knowledge that you come into about your personal situations, you definitely start understanding. Things start making sense more. And I'll tell you this much. Sometimes you realize that, you know, I should call them the gods because they are separate, but I say God. And when I say God, I really mean more than one. Because God is not just masculine or just feminine. So I should say gods, but God, I'm going to say God. I'm going to unify them because they are one to me. But God will set the stage of your life in any sort of backdrop. It can be a backdrop of literal war. It can be a backdrop of a battle with your health. It could be a backdrop of you being a political leader or somebody whose life is it, whatever the backdrop is, it literally always comes down to the same fight. And really, it is the fight between good and evil. No matter how you slice it, and I've thought about this over and over, in a battle with your health, there is not necessarily another person with a vessel that you can point a finger at and say, this person is attacking me. However, it is a spiritual attack. Why? Because you're supposed to be healthy. You are supposed to be in good health. You are not supposed to be, give me a second. You look at a battle with your health. One of the biggest ways that dark entities attack you is on your health. That's a major thing, because if you are not healthy, nothing is good. You could have a successful business, you can have a great relationship, but if you're not physically healthy on your physical vessel, it is impossible to enjoy. If you're in constant pain, if you're constant dis-ease, the ease is not there in your life, then yes, you are going to constantly be in a battle within yourself, inside of yourself. If it's your mental health that is in jeopardy, then you're constantly going to have mental health issues. You're going to constantly have dis-ease. You're going to constantly not be okay. So it is important to understand that whatever battle you're in is constantly going to be, can you light this for me? Hey, light this for me, please, and bring it back. You're going to constantly be in a predicament with yourself. You're going to constantly, you're not going to want to pray. You're going to want to fight God. You're going to want to say to God, like, how comes? Why? If I've been a good person, if I've done what I was supposed to, if I have a little bit more, if I've been a good person, if I've done what I was supposed to, why are you allowing this to happen to me? So it doesn't matter where your challenge comes from, where your battle comes from. It doesn't matter. What it really boils down to at the end of the day is, how are you addressing this? Thank you. How are you addressing the battle that you're in? How are you addressing it? And it always comes down to the same thing, good versus evil. So in my situation, it has been the backdrop of a drug recruitment. But as the days go on, I'm realizing that is the backdrop. That is what initiated the situation. What is actually going on is satanic worship and entities trying to block people who give messages of light that are going to take them out of positions of power. It is them in any way, shape, or form using a vessel, even if they have to abuse the vessel, even if they have to do whatever it is that they got to do to get you to a space of abandoning what you got to talk about when it comes to talking about God. Whatever they have to do, they're going to do. And it becomes, instead of giving messages in favor of God, it becomes a persecution. It becomes a constant battle. It becomes something that, you know, I constantly say, I wish that I could have given these messages in peace. I wish that I could have even met God in from a place of peace. I wish. But you know what? The thing about meeting God at a place where there is no peace is that now you know what people who are being attacked are going through. Now you know for a fact that people being attacked, that people being persecuted are going through hell and back. And you can really speak to people from a place of empathy when you understand what they're going through. And so I can really sympathize. And this is also a learning process for me. And part of it being a learning process for me is understanding that, first of all, people do not have to take the information I'm giving them just because it's right. That I'm going to face an uphill battle, that I am going to go through spiritual attack, and that I'm not even alone in that. That is just the way that that works. So I'll tell you one thing. I remember, and this is just one thing, but I remember there's this gospel singer that I really like, and looking into his background, I saw where his wife passed early and left this man with 3 kids. And my heart instantly broke, and I instantly felt it was a spiritual attack on him. Why? Because his music is prophetic. His music has seen me through. His music, the words, the lyrics of his songs are very pointed. It's not even about his voice, it's about the message. And when I found him, I don't think this man has ever made a song that deserves not to be a hit. It's like he has hit after hit after hit. And his music draws people in. He has millions of viewers, millions of comments. I mean, if you just replay his stuff, you're getting followers just for that, or views just for that, because he speaks to the wounded. And so they're gonna take from you in that situation your happiness, because why? You're working for God. And I just felt his pain instantly. To leave a man with children and no wife, no help, to leave him without his helper. Because when you get into a marriage, God is giving you a helper. More than anything, God is giving you a helper. A marriage that God puts together, not you. A marriage that God deems fit. God is saying, this is what you need to do, and you need help, and this is who is appropriate to help you. So sometimes that person that you get, maybe that wife is extra comforting, she is extra loving, she is extra understanding, she can see through, she knows what you need, she knows just what you need, she knows what to say, the right things to say, the comfort to give. So this is your ideal match. It's like even being given a husband. Maybe you need to take your mind off of certain things to make your task easier, because doing this alone is going to be a lot. And so looking at that man's marriage, their beautiful kids, and seeing the pictures of the kids with just him without their mom, my heart broke. And I said, that's a spiritual attack. That's what the enemy did. These things breaks God's heart. Even talking about it now, heartbreaking. These things breaks God's heart, to know that somebody who's been so dedicated, obedient, and persistent can face that kind of a loss. But I also know that in those challenging times, that when people are called home, it's because you need spiritual help on the other side as well. And sometimes it's like, who is best suited to do it? It might be the person, and it usually is the person that you love the most. The person that you love the most is going to be the person that is going to open your heart spiritually. Because why? The energetic cord that you have to this person, you're not going to cut it just because they pass away. You're not. If you truly love someone and they pass, you are not even able to come to terms with it, that this person has passed. And you're going to continue talking to them. You don't have a choice. There are things that are left unsaid. You were not prepared. Even if you were prepared, even for people were in the hospital for weeks or months. They are not just in the hospital for weeks and months idling. You're not there just thinking, okay, let me prepare myself for them to pass. You're begging God, pleading, fighting with God, please don't take them. Because you cannot see your way forward without having this person physically present with you. But I can tell you, looking at the timing of when my grandmother passed, and looking at the amount of time it took for me to get over it, or cope with it, live with it, I went through the process of talking to her every day. There are people whose family members have passed, And their bedroom is in the exact same way as if they were there. Their shoes are beside the bed. Their bed is made. All of their things are in place. Their pictures are still on the wall. Maybe it's too difficult to have the pictures in other parts of the house because you got to look at it all the time, be reminded. But everything is in place as it were. And they are not ready to release. And I think now from the place that I'm in, I know that you're not supposed to release. You're supposed to hold on. You're supposed to keep that bond open. And then that person can guide you through the rest of the journey. They can be a protection. They can be even a spiritual liaison between you and God. They can fight for you in the spirit. They become a guardian angel to you because you are close to them. So it's like God is almost putting in a necessary means, multiple ways to reach you. Sometimes maybe you, not through your own fault, but through things that you're going through, might succumb to blocking yourself from God. And because of how high God vibrates, you might not be able to reach God. But what will happen is your guardian angels can always reach you. Your ancestors can always reach you, simply because they don't have to vibrate as high as God does. So they can always reach you. I looked at his kids who had to grow up without a mother, and I'm thinking, you know what? They're not growing up without a mother. They just have their mother in the spirit. And usually when you have such an amazing calling on your life, your children have an amazing calling on their life as well. And so your children are going to need spiritual protection, heavy spiritual protection. And who would fight for them harder than their own mother? And sometimes they may not have her there physically that they know of, but they will feel her and they will feel her love. So this is a place that I come to where I realized, where I first started my journey. I grew up Christian and I started my journey very faith-based, very religious. And the spirituality happened to me on its own. And and spirituality and religion is a dogmatic way, in my opinion. Religion is a dogmatic way of practicing spirituality. So it should be the same, but it feels like it is not the same. It feels like the two are at odds with each other. That's where my beliefs started to shift. That's where things started to meld. And it really did feel like a joining of spirituality and religion. And I say religion and not Christianity because I am open to and take pieces of multiple religions. There are Hindu gods that I love. I think the Quran is one of the most beautiful books that I've ever. The Quran is Islam is a very, very, very strict religion, but I still think it's one of the most beautiful books I've ever read, and I've read of it. And I think it all makes sense, and I think they're all saying the same things, and I think that they're all asking us to have the same discipline so that we can live a life that has protection from the persecution. That, first of all, you're persecuted whether or not you believe in God. It's just that they're not going to target you as hard because what you're doing is in service of them. They still stick it to you every once in a while, for sure. They're not nice to you. It's not a fun environment. It's still going to be a lot of hate. It's still going to be a lot of malice. It's still going to be a lot of chaos. But when you are telling people about God, that is where you're really going to face a lot of horrendous behavior. And the targeting is going to be exceptionally difficult to deal with. It takes a while to get to the point of coming to terms with the fact that this is going to be suffering, the fact that a life in service of God and a life in service of telling people about God is going to involve suffering. It takes a while for that to come to that place. It does. And it takes also, maybe for some people, it's going to take a while to come to a place of understanding that you're not suffering because God's not with you. You're getting protected from things you don't even know have been coming towards you. But also, you got to come to terms with the fact that everything that you go through is also leading you to something else. Because had I not gone through my first set of trials, I would be nowhere near ready. I would have not seen parallels between past experiences and this one. I would have not been able to handle this. I would have been mad at God. I would have lost God early on in the journey because I would think, oh my God, God is not here. The first time I went through it, I thought God is not here. And then I got to the point of saying, no, God is. It was after the fact that I saw how much God really was there and how much God really was with me. God restored everything that I lost, and I came out a much better version than who I was. But I stuck with my fight, and I kept on that path, and I kept on that journey, and I came out of it telling people, hey, when I was younger, I didn't believe in God. And because of that, I'm so sympathetic about people that say, where is God and how can God be here and all. I'm sympathetic to it because I understand that that was the point of what I was going through. The demonic entities on the woman attacking me were trying to get me to stray from God, even though God was there. So this is what I'm saying. In your battle, that is going to be more than the average level of persecution. In your battle, you're going to have to understand that God is very much with you. God is the one protecting you from things that you are not seeing. In my battle, God has shown me what I've been protected from. The first thing that happened to me when I started going through this is one of the first things I said was, oh my God, this is what I've been being protected from all my life. This is the protection that was for free before, so free that I didn't even know that this was happening. Now I can see it in full HD. It gives me more appreciation. It makes me bow more deeply before my altar. It makes me understand that no day is promised but for the protection of God. It makes me, I've experienced and I'm experiencing demonic energy. I am experiencing evil. And I literally am just floored. I woke up this morning and I was so sad because, yesterday, as the people started coming into the live, they sat there and it didn't matter what I was talking about. But as soon as I started talking about God, immediately they took everybody off the live because, my devices are mirrored. And I remember I came off and I had such a troubling feeling. It's like a bother. It's like a dark cloud. Like, why is it that I can insult someone, I can say whatever, but the only thing that they care about is me not talking about God? And yes, you can say destiny swap and whatever. They don't want you to have your destiny and blah, blah, blah. But no, there's something else. There's something deeper. What is this? And I realized it's a hatred for God. And I woke up this morning and I was just so sad because I just can't understand why. I feel troubled. I feel troubled by thinking that people actually not only don't believe in God, but in order to hate God, you have to believe in God. You have to know that God is there. You have to definitely acknowledge that God is there. So you acknowledge that God is there and you hate God. And it troubles me and I don't know how it's happened. And I know because, I'm learning that it's not my job to try to heal everybody and fix everybody, but I guess it shouldn't matter how it's happened. It's just the fact that it hurts me because it's like there's nothing not to love. There's nothing not to like. And so I just know that this is where, excuse me, once again, the enemy has confused people. This is where, once again, these dark forces have fooled people, deceived people, tricked people to work through them. And sometimes it definitely does take being God teaching someone a lesson that God is real. And let me tell you, the first spiritual battle I had was with someone who went to church religiously, read a Bible religiously, and all that. So people wouldn't have thought. And these people that attack here also talk about Jesus and God consistently all the time. So, I mean, watching me now, I'm pretty sure they would like to talk about other things now as well. I'm pretty sure that they would like to come to a space where they could talk about these entities openly and see if people would accept it, because they've been lying. But and I think now they are coming out with it a little bit more, and they're framing it in a different way, because that's what these entities want people to do, is they want to bring people to them. They want it out in the open. If you are speaking about God, and if your life is to tell people the truth, not the half truth, not the half baked truth, the real truth, opening of your heart and telling people in real 3D, like, look, it's not just religious, it's not just Jesus Christ died on the cross. There is more to this story. Everything in the Bible is true, but there is more. All of the religions, all of the spiritual beliefs, all of the mythologies, all of them, they all have to come together to have the truth. It's bits of the truth are all here. It's all already here. You need to piece it all together. So if you're just Christian or just Muslim or just this, you're missing pieces. There are pieces here that are missing, and I think that they're missing on purpose. So when we get to a point where, hold on, Safi. When we get to a point, or when I got to a point where I started seeing it for what it was, and you know, the purpose of me coming on here definitely was to talk about God. But honestly, I don't think that I was ready before. I just really don't. I think that I had things to learn, because I used to be confused. I used to be like, this doesn't quite sit in one place, one way or the other. This doesn't quite make sense to me. God doesn't have an issue with witches. What is this? Is this dark? Is this light? What is this? And the truth is, it's a middle path. It's both. It's both dark and light. So for today, let me first look something up that I wanted to talk about, or how I want to start. I want to find the definition of religion, the formal definition of it. So religion, okay, hold on. The definition of religion is the belief in and worship of a superhuman power or powers, especially a god or gods. Ideas about the relationship between science and religion, a particular system of faith and worship, a pursuit of interest to which someone ascribes supreme importance. And now I'm going to look for the definition of spirituality. So the definition of spirituality is the quality of being concerned with the human spirit or soul, as opposed to material or physical things. The shift in priority allows us to embrace our spirituality in a more profound way. The dictionary version definition is the quality of, that is the definition. Spirituality means knowing that our lives have significance in a context beyond a mundane everyday existence at the level of biological needs that drive selfishness and aggression. It means knowing that we are a significant part of a purposeful unfolding of life in our universe. That is the definition of spirituality. So you can see that religion has more to do with kind of like gods and things like that. And then spirituality has more to do with concerns of things that are outside of, I guess, what it says material things are. Anything, anytime I do anything involving God, whether it's pray, meditate, whatever, this little pesky thing comes. Modern usages of spirituality tend to refer to a subjective experience of a sacred dimension and the deepest values and meanings by which people live. So this is what spirituality is, and that's what religion is. And to be honest, I am both. I have no choice. The spiritual walk, where you are ascended by God on your own with God, it forces both. It is not one or the other. And that is just what that is. This is a blend. So in religion, when I say religion is more structured. So in religion, you're going to have where it's a discipline. Now, spirituality is also discipline too. People don't talk about that enough. It's very disciplined. You know, you look at, say, something like Islam, you pray certain times of the day, you face in certain directions. There are certain times of the year you do this, certain times you do that. It's very dogmatic. It's very practiced. It's very structured. But as people ascend higher and higher in spiritual practices, it's the same diligence is required. They go along moon cycles. They do things at particular times. They do things in particular ways. There, the structure is still required. The discipline is still required. One way or the other, discipline is required. One way or the other, adherence is required. They say that they're not their own gods, but anything that you ascribe supreme importance to, especially when it's more important than even you, anything you ascribe that much importance in your life becomes your God. So if that is darker entities, if that is a darker entity, whatever, even if you're just grateful to this entity because you know, you feel that God hasn't done for you, but this entity has done for you. This entity has come through for you, which is what I imagine what people here think when it comes to certain things, even if that is what it comes down to and that's what it boils down to, it is still a God. So there is no such thing in this universe as the God is who is looking in the mirror, maybe for a period of time. But this spiritual realm is very tricky, and something is going to come get you sooner or later as you wander out there by yourself. And if you don't armor yourself with God, with the Holy Spirit, what is going to come get you is going to force itself as God in your life. Because as you continue to perform acts of service and be in service to it, it will take over your life. Things take over your life in a few ways outside of your control. Not outside of your control, but without you noticing. So one of the first ways that things take control or take hold is through practice. As things are being practiced over and over, they become a habit. And as they become a habit, they take a hold. A lot of sexual addictions happen just by watching porn, not even by sleeping around, but preoccupying your mind with that. Then that happens. A lot of religious closeness and bonding happens by continually praying. The more you pray, the more you go in the spirit, the more you talk to God, is the closer you get to God. And so a lot of things occur simply by us practicing that behavior over and over. You must get to a point where you decide what you are practicing. Is this what you want to be in service of? And that could be anything. It could be, the way you speak to yourself, your thoughts. It could be the emotions you allow yourself to feel. It could be, for TIs, I see no complaining. I know that's not easy. Because somebody asked me, they said, how with all this abuse that you face every day? I know that's not easy. And nobody's saying it has to be easy. Hold on. Nobody's saying that it has to be easy at all. God knows it's not easy. Listen, when it is time to learn a lesson or for something to happen for you, when it is time, they tell you before. You get indication before. If you're supposed to learn something, no, leave it. If you're supposed to learn something or something is supposed to happen for you, this happens long before. It is time for it to happen, because God knows that you need time to acclimatize to what you're being asked of or what's been being asked of you. God knows you need time. Things are not just going to come right away. Positive habits don't just grow. As much as I wanted to come on here and I wanted to talk about spiritual things and talk about God, I needed time for me to grow. Because one thing I can tell you, I am not going to just try to answer questions for people that people have that are difficult questions and I don't have the answer, because I don't. There was a point I have no idea why bad things happen to good people, because bad things were happening to me and I had questions of God like, why are these things happening? First you start off and you take it personally, and then you start saying, well, God, like, how long am I going to need to go through this? What's going to continue to happen? Like, how do I make it out of this? Like, I know you're here with me, but how long is this going to take, etc. And you got to really wait on God. You got to have the faith to wait on God. You got to have the faith to know that eventually things are going to come full circle. It's gonna happen for you one way or the other. It is gonna happen for you, but you have to have the faith to walk through it. And these battles, they are not instant. It's not instant relief. It's long, it's drawn out, it's exaggeratedly drawn out. But really, it's for you to come out of that fire as the best version of yourself. For you to come out of that fire as a different version of yourself, for you to go through your complete evolution. And trust me, when God wants a complete evolution, they're not leaving even 1%. You gotta go through the complete transformation. The transformation is going to be painful, because death and rebirth as a cycle is probably, think about it, death and rebirth while you're alive. If you think about the full thing that's happening here, you have to spiritually die. You're going to hell, so you're suffering. It's hell on earth. And then you ascend. So it's not easy. It's not going to be easy. And they're not making this an easy death. This feels like you're dying by like the most violent way possible, because you're losing things, you're losing people, depending on your situation, you might even be losing hope. You're just trying your best, your human best, to get through. And I can tell you, nobody goes through a death and rebirth cycle without God. You will go through the death part, but you're not going to be reborn. Not without the Holy Spirit. It is not possible. You cannot ascend to meet God without going through a proper death and rebirth cycle. It will not occur. You will die, let me repeat, but you will not be reborn. You need help, you need assistance, you need guidance, and you need God to coach you through. When you're given instructions, if you think that these things are easy to carry out, you have no idea. God does not want you to bicker. God does not want you to be upset, but you're going to have days and moments where that is what's going to be. That's what's going to happen. You're going to have your moments of being upset. You're going to have your moments of being confused. And God knows that. And God has talked to me before and said, I know that the messaging that you're getting right now is conflicting. And I'm like, yeah, it's conflicting. When I work hard, you tell me I'm working too hard. When I don't work as hard, you tell me I'm not working hard enough. I need help. Give me some clear instructions here. I'm willing, I'm ready. Let me know. So this is also a path of figuring you in spirit out. It's not easy. It's not an easy road. I can't tell you one part of it that's easy. And you're gonna want to give up if you're a human being anyways, if you're normal anyways. I've never gotten to that point myself personally where I have ever entertained giving up. God won't let me. God will not let me. I'm really sorry. I went through this last night, woke up fine, and as soon as, this is the other thing I wanted to point out. Targets abandon their routines because once these people study your routines, they know when to attack. But without a routine, progress is going to be very difficult. You gotta have some type of routine about you. You gotta have something about you that you can work with. Like you need some sort of something. You just gotta get fortified. You gotta get fortified in the spirit. You gotta get strong in the spirit to be able to deal with the attacks. I asked God, please let the attacks stop. And God said, you need strength to pass every test because these tests are coming. These tests are coming. You need strength to pass it. You don't need for the test not to come. You need strength to pass it. It is a very, very sad thing to see God's people attacked like this because they definitely have the numbers. They have more people because more people are willing to go with this illusion than people are. Nobody looks at a life of persecution and says, this is what I want. Knox, stop. Hi, can we get Knox, please? Nobody looks at a life of persecution and thinks to themselves, this is what I want to do today. This is what I want to do tomorrow. This is what I want to do for a lifetime. Nobody looks at a life of suffering that way. You got to have a love of people. You got to have a love of God. You got to have a commitment to God. And this is how you stay the course. God loses people all the time because the path is not easy. You have to make a commitment that you're sticking through this no matter what. People here are assigned to take you off your path. And if they take you off your path, you lose that protection of God. You lose God's favor. And people see that you have God's favor on you. That's the whole point. That's what they're trying to take from you is God's favor. And they see that it's over your life. They see the protection and they see the breakthrough coming before you do. You might feel a breakthrough coming, but they see this breakthrough coming. And that's when the persecution and the attacks are going to come in harder than ever before. I can only stress, implore, and beg that people do not lose faith in their journey, in their fight, in their struggle. I can only beg of you because as people attacking you lose faith because they see that you are determined, they see that they're never going to stop you, they see that you have a commitment to God in a way that cannot be explained. As they do see that, it's going to be more, they're losing hope, but they're not going to give you, they've lost hope. In my situation, if people have hope, I don't know what to say. But they're going to be more, there's going to be a harder fight over your life. There is. These demons are going to attack more because they want to stop this no matter what. And I don't just mean looking at myself. I know that I'm meant to help people. I know that I'm meant to tell people about God and bring people to God. But I don't just mean even myself. I'm talking about people going through their dark night of the soul, people going through their persecutions, people going through their pain, people going through their anguish. You are going to be attacked and persecuted for God's sake. Give me a second. if you guys want, if my messages are going to be rife with spiritual, with interruption, because that's the way I can do it. I don't beat myself up about the way that this can be done anymore. Before, the cats used to scream in the background, so be it. I gotta give the message. Before, my stove, they used to play pianos, use my stove like a little piano key, so be it. That's the way it's gotta go. Before, it used to be one thing and another thing, and it's always gonna be something, and guess what? That's the way it has to go. So if I gotta get this spiritual protection and light something, that's the way it has to go. If somebody is thirsty for knowledge, they'll sit through it, and if they don't, and if it's annoyance, then they won't. It really is a matter of starting to like release what you cannot control. Do how you can until you can find a better way. And sometimes God will push on you and say, hey, you should do this and that, and you're gonna say to God, like, how important is this? Is this something you prefer, or is this something I can get away with, because this is what I got in me right now? I want to talk about, before I go, your relationship with God and what that feels like. So, my relationship with my parents, okay? So, a mother and a father. First of all, I tend to have these slips where I call them people. I tend to call them people because that's how I see them, that's how I feel them. And it is truly a relationship. It is not how people make it sound like it's dictatorial, where they're forcing, where they're bullying, where God wants it. No, a relationship with dark entities is dictatorial. Relationships with dark entities is bullying. Relationships with dark entities compromise your life. When it comes to a relationship with God, it is not dictatorial. God may ask you for something, they will never push. They let you come to your own conclusions. They let you see it your way. And sometimes it takes a while to see it God's way. It's not easy. God has been telling me what has been happening here for a while. They're trying to distract you from the messages that you should give. But I also think that when I come to it is the right time. I think that as I come close to having to realize things, God shakes me up. And God says, get out of this cycle. This is what needs to happen. God will shake you up. You know, but God also sees, and God has no choice but to how can God not understand? God is seeing you go through it. God is feeling, God is telling you that it's gonna come. So as things become difficult, as things become trying, listen, why do I call God a person? God is like a person without a body, because God too, God's heart breaks. God's heart breaks when you feel separated from God, when you feel sad, when you feel defeated, as people hurt you, as people bully you, whatever it is that you're going through, it makes God sad. It makes the Holy Spirit sad. So that's number one. You got to know that. The second thing that you got to know is everything they tell you is of your best interest. Believe me, in my situation, I know they want to push me to do more and whatever, but I got to say sometimes, hey, what I'm doing here, they don't want to push you too far, because they understand though something may be necessary, it might not be possible, because they'll see that as they ask you of more of you and you genuinely try to do it, they have to send you messages and say, you can't do all of this, but you asked me to do it. So you got to have conversations with God. You got to address your questions to God, or else you're going to lose yourself in your journey. If I was not asking God, if I was not talking back to God in a two-way fashion and saying to God, like, please, we got to talk. I've had those moments where I've said, hey, we really got to have a serious talk. What is going on here? And they'll talk back to you, and it may not be in a human voice, it may not be, but they'll show you things, they'll make you see things, they'll warn you, they'll whatever, but you got to talk back. I started very early in my relationship asking a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions. If you don't ask your questions, you're going to sit there and make up your own answer. That is dangerous. You have a question of, why is this happening to me? Ask. Why are they getting away with it? Ask. Why are people like this? Ask. Because when you get the answer, it relieves you. It takes an unnecessary burden off your shoulders. I've seen people who are fighting to give messages, and it's almost like they you can hear that they're afraid to ask, and they say, well, you know, we too have questions of God, of why are people like this. I ask, I ask, why are they like this? What is going on? I've said to God, how can you give people gifts and they do this? Do you guys think this is responsible behavior? They are persecuting people, and then you gotta send in people to be further persecuted to get rid of them. There's no better way we could think of. Why is this working? Sometimes you get answers right away. Sometimes the answer is incremental. Sometimes God sees, God understands. There are things here that God needs to rectify. And I say that you gotta make good on the people who are suffering. It's painful for them. I see that it's painful for them. My heart is breaking, but I do want to tell you, please don't think that God has abandoned you. And this is why sometimes I don't want to say anything, because as I say this, my heart is breaking and I'm in pain for it, because sometimes I start encouraging people in God, and then I have to stop because I don't know what to say. Because how do you defend God when these things are happening? You feel it's inexcusable. How do you even justify? How do you say anything? Give me a second, I gotta light the sage. People are suffering in ways that would make a person an atheist. People are suffering in ways that would make a person hate God. Those who hate God understand how to make other people hate God. And so I say to God, well, gotta come through a little bit for people to start that journey. It's a two-way conversation. God knows more than me as to how this can get done, but it doesn't stop me from giving my opinion. How do you even begin to tell people trust in God when they've been a TI for 14 years? It hurts. It hurts me to see. It hurts them to go through. It hurts to even think about it right now. It hurts because it's like, this is incomprehensible. It's bad. God does not have a good PR team at all. And when people start talking about God, they also do evil at the same time. Misrepresentation, that's what they do. It's like whatever God stands for, then people misrepresent it, and it turns people off. That's what they try to get to do with me. Projecting anger, projecting hate, projecting all these feelings, and then trying to talk to people about God. Very horrible. I've always said, when you look at people giving messages to God, please understand, there was this thing that came out about TD Jakes being gay and going to P. Diddy's parties and whatever. And I said, if it's true, I don't care. Because nobody is more persecuted. Nobody has a more difficult time than somebody who is talking about goodness, peace, spreading positive messages, and helping people. And TD Jakes is one of those pastors that has really been helpful. He talks about in the beginning of his journey how tough it was. They were talking against him on the radio. He talks about the fact that there were witches that came to his church. They left like blood sacrifices and stuff on the outside of the church. He couldn't get funding for a building that was, I think he said 10 million or something. They had already dug the hole and to build the building, and they put all this money in, and God said to keep going. And that might not resonate with people, but you don't understand when God tells you to do something and you don't see the end of it, and you don't understand how, and you're sitting there like, how? It's easy to have faith when what you're being asked of is very small. It's more challenging when it could cost you your life. It's more challenging, and I don't just mean your physical life, like that might already be gone or, in jeopardy, your actual life. It's not easy when it's massive debt. It's not easy when you're faced with hardship and oppression that makes no sense. So when he said that, I resonated with it very deeply in my soul. I was like, listen, I get it. I get what that must feel like, to dig a hole and no one's going to give you funding and you're millions in the hole with this project and you don't know what to do. And God says, go back out there and preach. And you're like, how does this affect the funding? Not easy. Not easy. Not easy. This journey is not easy. And I look at them where they are today, and you might say, well, he made it through. Look at where he is today. Just the other day, he had rumors on his life that he is gay and that he went to P. Diddy parties and doing all of this kind of thing. A man of God. It will never end. It will never cease. There is always going to be something else. There is always going to be something else. This life, they make God's people suffer so that we lose faith and we lose hope. They put us in predicaments. They try to drain us in every way of energy, of finances, of love, of peace, of happiness, of hope. So much they put us through. And sometimes God doesn't tell you the whole thing, because if God did, you would have been like, you wouldn't go for it. If God told you this is what it was like, but you were needed, but if God told you this is what it was like, you wouldn't go for this. I don't think very many of us would. We would have given this up a long time. Like, we wouldn't have started. We wouldn't have started. You have to first experience God. You have to first fall in love with God. And then it's for the love of God that you do this. When it all boils down to it, this is what they cannot take away. They cannot take away your love of God, and they definitely cannot take God's love for you. That is what it boils down to. It's love, because this is real love. This is pure. This is not something that you can fake or you can make up. You either really have this or you don't, because you're being persecuted. You either have this love of God or you don't. You either have this respect of God or you don't. You either put God on a pedestal, or as we do, on an altar or on a throne, both in our heart, in our minds, and in our home, or you don't. This is not gonna be something you can pretend. It will be tested, it will be tried. And in the darkest moment, that is when the breakthroughs come, when you are exhausted, when you are tired, when you have had it. Sometimes the hardest part of your journey, for some of us, the hardest part, everybody's journey, I realize when I have really, because I've had the opportunity to look at other preachers and other people, what they go through and the things that happen with them. And I'll tell you, it's not always, people might think they have to destroy your relationship with God. And that sometimes is indestructible. That's not always it. Sometimes it might be other things that are difficult for everybody. I look at other people's journeys. One thing I have noticed when it comes to preachers is that a lot of listen, when you read the Bible and you see Jesus's words, Jesus was irritated all the time. You can read it. You read the irritation in the words. You read the sarcasm. You read the self-restraint. You can feel it and you read it. When you listen to certain preachers, you can feel the self-restraint. You can feel the annoyance, because day in, day out exhausts a person. And you're never gonna get to the point, a person who is gonna get to the point of giving up on God or walking away from God, doesn't get to the darkest moment. The darkest moment is for the people who are getting through the darkest moment, because to make it here, just to the journey to get to your darkest moment is a very tough journey. So getting to your darkest moment means that you're willing to go through your darkest moment. In order to go through with God, you got to be willing to get homeless. You got to be willing to be bankrupt. You got to be willing to lose your children. You got to be willing to lose spouses. You got to be willing to lose your life. That is the journey with God. If you think it's anything less, then I would be lying to you. That is the journey with God. The journey with God is the willingness to lose everything you are and everything you have and everything you've worked for. That is the willingness. That is what it takes. In the absence of that, if you are worried about losing anything or anyone, I don't know what to say. I don't want to tell you reconsider, but you got to deal with that first. You got to deal with that first. Because the people that are fighting you are willing to lose their life. They're willing to lose their freedom. I'm telling you what I'm seeing. They're willing to lose their health, their life, their freedom, their associations, their network, their money, every and anything a human being can value. People who hate God are willing to sacrifice all of that. Maybe not voluntarily, maybe through possession they're willing to do it, but they're willing to do it. If you are not matching equally in faith, and God doesn't possess, God can live in your heart, but God is not going to control your life in this way. So this is a free decision for you to make. And so if you cannot match that without the possession that is moving your hand, then this spiritual walk, especially to talk to people, is not for you. It's not for you. Many are called, but few are chosen. You know how you get chosen? You got to make yourself worthy of this. You have to show and prove, that this is something you can do. That's how you get chosen for this. People tend to think that there are all kinds of parameters and whatever in order to be worthy of speaking for God. And really what it boils down to is, how much can you endure? What can you go through? Because those who come up against you are willing to die on their cross, their satanic cross, in the same way. So this is something where you got to be willing to do what it takes. You got to be willing to listen, have blind faith, go through, but do heavy lifting. The last thing that I want to talk about, I don't want to talk about too much about my relationship with God today, because the mood of today is somber. It is somber. It's very heartbreaking to come to some of these realizations. This hurts me more than the other things that have happened here. Things happen to me and I can brush this off my shoulders. I don't have high expectations here. But to see how hard people fight against God, that hurts. That hurts. That's crazy to me. So, like with everything else, I'm going to acclimatize to it. There's no way to be sad about the same thing every day, but you know, the realization has been dawning on me slowly but surely. And as it really dawns on me what happened here, I'm just like, I'm coming to terms with it. There was something that I wanted to say. My God, it escaped me. I forget. Anyway, I want to say this much. The spiritual journey is yours. People like myself can only give information and guide you on what worked for us. It is personal. We don't all get the same spirit guides. We don't all get the same blueprint. We don't all get the same journey, and that's the truth. What works for me and what worked for me and the advice that I'm given is not going to work for other people. And I've seen that demonstrated in so many ways. You have to find your own path. You got to find your own way. And, you know, it really does start with purity of intention, a pure heart, and a true, genuine love of God. Part of why I've never really fully come out with my relationship with God is because it's personal. I tend to very much worry about people who are very outwardly pious and religious. I tend to think it's fake because the relationship with God is so private, it's so personal. It's not to say that you don't want to tell people that you are in love with God. Not at all. It's just that it's so personal. It's literally the most rawest part of you is your relationship with God. It's something that is, you want to protect it, you want to keep it pure, so you keep it to yourself. And it's not like you're coming outside to tell people your prayers or tell people what's going on with you or any of the above. You're telling people that God is there. But for me, one of my things was, and this is back in the day, I would talk about God, but I'm definitely not going to force anybody to believe in God. I would gently nudge people and say, hey, I really think that you should maybe consider this, but I'm definitely not going to like force anyone. And if they don't, I accept that that's their journey. And with kindness and with love, it's like, you know, you got to do what you got to do and you got to face your own way, because I know that there is a cost to not walking with God. There is a cost to that. But I also know that once you publicly say that you don't believe in God, these Satanists come for you even faster because there's nothing for you to hold on to. And I know that there have been people in my life that I've come in contact with that have said publicly they don't believe in God. They don't think God is there. They've been the easiest ones to fall. So you have to make a decision on your own and walk your own spiritual path, regardless of what people say. In fact, I encourage not letting people school you. I encourage not subscribing to everything someone says. I listen to people when it comes to God, but I don't take everything. I go by my personal experience. So one of the things I don't subscribe to is Jesus Christ. I do not pray to Jesus Christ because Jesus Christ is not on my altar. It's just not someone or an entity or a figure. I don't even know if, you know, I consider Jesus Christ like an archangel, worthy of respect, because a full life of persecution is not a joke. I've done 2 years of active persecution, and I can tell you, there are TIs going through this with no God, with no shield, and I can bow to them because that's not easy. 1 year without any protection is not easy. So 14 years or however many years, I salute you. You are strong. You are strong and have no choice and haven't committed suicide or anything. That is strength. So, and haven't changed, haven't flipped, haven't become dark, haven't become hateful. That is strength. I pray every day, multiple times a day, talk to God multiple times a day, meditate multiple times a day, just to be able to protect my divinity. You know, so if someone is not even of that practice and still divine, trust me, and I don't mean divine in like connected to the divine, but still like a decent human being, I don't know how they've done it, I don't know how they've accomplished it, but I salute it. I salute it. Take your walk. It is personal. I cannot sit here, and if I did, it wouldn't make sense anyways, which is why I'm not doing it. I cannot sit here and tell people, say the things that people typically see. These are things you have to address with God. Just as I did. Just as I did. I had to take my walk with God, and I had to come off from being beaten down upon and having multiple layers of very tough spell work over top of me, and make the decision to stand up in the middle of that spell work. I had to do that. Nobody could do that for me, and no one could encourage me to do that. If somebody had come by and tried to encourage me to do that, the first thing that I would have said is, you don't know what I'm going through. You don't understand what this feels like. I would have always had something to say. So that's why I don't want to tell anybody that. You got to decide that. You got to go through it. Anybody who's going to tell you what to do on your journey and on your walk, it's just going to make you resentful. You got to come to it on your own. You do. And that's the truth. There is no going around it. You got to come to terms with the path that you have to take on your own. What you got to do has to come inward. It has to come from you. Because if somebody sits here and tries to tell you, hey, you're supposed to pray, hey, you're supposed to love God, hey, you're supposed to heal, what difference is it gonna make? Technically, you could have came to that conclusion yourself. I don't think it's for me to say to other people, and I definitely don't think it's of other people to say. And God is so patient. God doesn't even always say that to me. God doesn't even always push me in those directions. So if God doesn't do it to me, who am I? All I can tell you is this is personal. If you're being targeted is both spiritual as much as it is physical. They attack you in both ways. They attack you spiritually, but they also block your channels. They attack you spiritually, but they also do this. They also do that. They also try to follow you. They also try to intimidate you, try to whatever. You gotta go through your phase. You gotta walk through it. You gotta get the strength. You gotta figure it out yourself, phase by phase. And people can come and give you the best messages that they want to, but you gotta take the steps. And if you're not unwilling, or if you're unwilling, to try to take that first step, if you're flat on your face or flat on your back, and you're not willing to put the effort, the energy, the strength behind getting off, rolling over, standing up, because it takes a while. It took 2 years for me to unbind, and that's the truth. It took 2 years to unbind. So if you think that this death and rebirth process that you're supposed to go through is going to be an instant thing, I'm just here to tell you it's not. It takes a while to get out of it. But when you get out of it, you're clear and free forever. You've broken free. You're free to go. They cannot rebind you. They cannot spiritually marry you. They cannot block you. They could do things to get in your way. They could stand in your way and they could try to target you. They could try to intimidate you, but you've done the work. If I didn't do the work to get over the anxiety, that anxiety could come at any time. It doesn't need a binding to come. If I didn't do the work for me to not take things seriously when people are trying to sit outside my house or do certain things to intimidate me, I'd be freaking going through intimidation all the time. If I didn't do the work to learn how to clean myself spiritually, I would be in and out of the hospital. I would constantly have issues. I went to the doctor. I had to be pushed. God had to push me so many times. I didn't fucking need it. Straight up. I didn't. I don't care what. It's like, I don't know. On my journey, I know I gotta go places because there are people that God wants to personally see, and God sees these people through me. But it's like, if you don't learn how to do your job, if you don't learn how to go on your journey, if you don't learn your lessons, it's you who suffer, you who are stagnated, you who are stuck. It's nobody else. People gotta come to terms with that sometimes. It's no one else but you. You're walking this life. You're the one that's going to be stuck, and your ancestors and your angels and God is gonna be on the other side crying, trying to get your attention, trying to push you forward, because it's you that they're watching going through this. So you have to decide that you are gonna put your focus not on complaining and watching the past, but learning the lesson. And whatever lesson you're on right now, that's the lesson that you gotta learn. You gotta walk through that. It's not happening for no reason. It's not happening for no reason. Whatever it is that you're going through is something that is a challenge that you got to learn how to endure and how to fix. And that's the truth. Is it tough? Are you tired? Are you fed up? You wouldn't even be human if you were not. Does God know it's tough? Does God know it's challenging? Does God Yes. Does God want it to stop? God is even more eager for it to stop. Like, you guys don't understand. God is even more eager for your suffering to stop than you are. You're exercising patience and positivity and all that every day to go through, and God's eager for this to be done. So you gotta take the walk hand in hand. You gotta go through it. I just want to mention, you gotta be willing to go to all those dark places. That is what it requires. Being a TI takes you to dark places. You can't be in control of it. You gotta learn ways of maintaining your vibration. That is part of being the spiritual walk, is maintaining the vibration. And it doesn't mean that you don't have down days. It doesn't mean that you don't have sad days. It doesn't mean that you don't have days where you're angry. Of course not. But it definitely does mean that you have to learn how to be buoyant. You have to learn how to manage it, because the vibration is the magic that you have within you. And if you are not in control of that, you allow outside forces to be in control of that. You're constantly going to be a slave to things outside of yourself. Try your best. Always, always on this walk, try your best. God is going to be with you as long as you allow it. Just do your best. Your best is what you can do. Your best looks different on different days. I just want to say God is understanding, much more understanding than we give God for. God understands. There have been things that God has pushed me to, and I have definitely pushed back and been like, I can't do that one, not today. So you got to talk. Like I said, it's a relationship. You got to talk. You got to say, hey, not today for this one. Why? Because this is going to happen and I don't feel equipped to handle this today. But what I can do is I can get equipped for tomorrow. No, that's not going to work in every situation. There's going to be situations where it has to be done today. It has to be done now. It's not every day, but there's some things God pushes me to, and I just got to be like, hey, I understand that I'm frustrated. You guys want me to bake, but I got important things to do. So we're going to bake tomorrow. Or not. I don't know. I don't think the baking is, you're trying to help, and I know they're trying to coach, but not today. Let's work. I think you'd be happier with me if I accomplished some work more than if I made a lovely bake and accomplished no work. This is what I mean. This is a perfect example. There are times you got to say to your own spirit guys, you guys got to work as a team. You guys got to communicate together. So you got to get used to them. How do they communicate? What do they want? Because they mean best. They do. They're very well meaning. But you know how much gas you have for the day. So you got to do what makes sense for the day. And a bad day or a good day is not a bad life. It's not a bad cycle. It's just a day where you're like, okay, steam's low. So ask for their help wherever you can. Definitely pray. They're working for you, not against you. It could be frustrating. Talk to them. Assure them. With my spirit guides, I say, listen, we're going to have certain days. You're not going to like the thoughts that you hear some days. But one thing I can tell you is I will never quit this battle with you, no matter what it comes down to. I pray it doesn't come down to the worst, but if it does, this is what I'm here for. And giving them that assurance will allow them to relax a little bit more, because they know that if nothing else, they have that. If I tell my spirit guides, I say, listen, here are our non-negotiables. Let's put them on the table right now. These are the things that you require. This is the big picture. This is what you want. Outside of the big picture, there are other little things here. And I cannot guarantee we're going to get all the little things. I cannot. Because my preoccupation is with winning this war. Some of these battles we're going to lose. My spirit guides would prefer I come on here looking dazzling and gorgeous every day. They lost that battle with me. I gotta give the message in the middle of working out, eating healthy, drinking enough water, doing my work, finding solutions, praying and meditating, tending to the. No, we're not gonna look cute. If people don't like what I look like, y'all should have looked for Glamazon for that job. Yeah, I can't do it. I don't even want to do it. They would prefer I come here, taking the time, doing a little bit of makeup and whatever. That's what they would prefer, because they know people are talking about me, not because of anything more than that, but they know that people are talking about me. People are spreading rumors. People are saying, oh, I'm a lesbian, and that's why, not because they don't think I'm beautiful. So you gotta know that when you start talking to your spirit guides. You gotta go like, guys, I know my spirit guides get bothered when people slander me. They hate it. They don't like it at all. But I gotta say to them, I don't care. It's not affecting my day, and that's the bigger picture. I don't care. They're like, well, I don't care. I can't. If I start caring about every little thing, I'm gonna constantly be here caring about every little thing. If I gotta think about what people are saying, I'm gonna constantly be here thinking about what somebody else is saying. I don't care. My spirit guides might want one thing or the other thing. It's my mother mostly. She's like any other mother. She is very worried about all kinds of little things. If there's a major thing like a health concern, yes. If there's a major thing like something I need to do that is important, yes, let's do that. If it's a financial concern, please, let's take care of that. But if it's something that I can deem that I can get away without doing, you got to talk to your guides. Now, if you push back and you say, guys, I can't do this, and they're like, no, this is on the path, this must be done, they'll tell you that as well. They'll tell you this is on the path, it must be done, and it must be done this way. Then that becomes a non-negotiable. That one is a non-negotiable. But for their non-negotiables, for what they need, they got my word, and that is hell or high water. I think it's important to make that distinction, to look at the spiritual journey in this way as really a relationship and really as a journey, so that we all can come to terms and realize like God is not here to dictate you, and God is not here to listen. They talk about burning in the fire of hell and all that. Do you know how bad it has to be for it to get that bad? People who gang stalk, they're facing stuff like that. Stuff like that is not for normal human beings that are going through life and they slip up here and slip up there. That's not how God is. Not at all. Not at all. This is for people who abuse abuse their power so badly that it infuriates God, that no sort of warnings work, persecution doesn't work, punishing them doesn't work. Because for most people, you slap their wrist and they learn. There's some people, it's like they learn so easily, like that's water under the bridge, it's done. They've repented and they've changed. But when you're talking about people that God cannot get their attention in any way, shape, or form, yeah, that's what hellfire is about. That's what that is. It's for those people. You talking to your guides and saying, you know, like there would be times I'd be working out and God really wants to encourage me. So God's like, do another one. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so exhausted. And I do the other one and I feel better after I've done it. And the next day God's like, well, add this and add that. I'm like, oh no. If I try to even think about it, I'm not going to come out of bed again to do this. So I'm waking up early to do this. Excuse me, these are the kind of things I need. I mean, and God just would be like, okay, well, you know, you should. You'd feel better. You'd look better. You'd feel great. I know. But I'm going to put so much energy into pushing it, into pushing myself that way, that I'm not going to have the energy for the non-negotiables. So that's how I want you to look at it. Look at your life and say, what are my non-negotiables with God here right now? are my non-negotiables surviving the gang stalking experience, getting back on my feet, getting a new schedule? What is it that my spirit team, me and God, have talked about that we have to do? And from there, what are the ones where I cannot really afford to spend energy tokens on this? And there will be some. So it does come at a cost when you don't do absolutely everything that you had, that God advises for you to do. It does come at a cost, but also I think God would prefer the non-negotiables to be dealt with than to leave you wasting energy in places where you're not going to see a lot of production, or you're not going to come out better for it. It'd be lovely for me to come out looking fantastic with abs of steel, but not at the price of not being able to come out at all. So this is what this is your walk. A spiritual walk is a walk of a relationship with spirit. That is the predominant thing, the relationship with spirit. This relationship should grow and strengthen over time in respect, strengthen over time in communication, strengthen over time in being reasonable. You know, I have times where I'm speaking to my guides and I'm apologizing for something, not anything I've done wrong, but I'm apologizing for maybe neglecting one thing, forgetting one thing, not doing something in the way that I should have, not making it on time, whatever it is. And they communicate to me as well. They let me know their position, and this is where the communication comes in. So how in a relationship that has communication, genuine love, trust, enjoying being in each other's company, understanding to know that sometimes we slip, sometimes we come back, sometimes things are good, sometimes they're not so great. When you fortify your relationship like that, this is like any human relationship. How can it ever be broken? We have human relationships, good ones. I'm talking about the good relationships that you have, you know, in your life. These relationships, when they're hinged on genuine love, when they're hinged on trust, when they're hinged on open communication, when they're hinged on a mutual objective, when they're hinged on determination and understanding of one another, it is very difficult, if not impossible, for anybody to come through this relationship or to break this up. This is where you want to be with your spirit guides. This is where you want to be with the Most High, where it is almost impossible. For me, it is impossible because like I said, I'm willing to go to the grave over this. And I think this is why people get certain blessings, or not even blessings, forget blessings, but why people get certain positions with God, because it's not something that can be taken lightly or said lightly. You can't even see something like that as a joke, especially when you're in a position where there's some people who would love to let that happen and would love to make that be something that happens. But the truth is that I cannot let anything stop me, because I believe in this so much. I believe in this with everything that I am. So you have that kind of commitment. That commitment outlasts everything else. It outlasts good days, bad days, motivated days, demotivated days. It outlasts everything. It's the commitment that you say, nothing is going to stop me. Nothing is going to block what my parents want, whether it's that they want it for me or not. And if that means that I have to be the living sacrifice, the sacrificial lamb, in order to get it done, then that's what I need, because that's what I agreed to before I even got here. I may not have remembered it, but I can feel it, that this is what is required, this is what is needed. So I know this was a lot, and I know if you're going through something, I don't know if this was necessarily encouraging for you, although very honest and very upfront and very authentic. Not every day is a great day, so I'm not going to tell you to be perfect and having great days, but I'm going to tell you, if you can keep your commitment in the days that are not great, if you can continue moving in the days that are not great, if you can show God this is not a great day, but the commitment stays the same, not a damn thing can change. Nothing. The same amount of effort, the same amount of push, the same amount of commitment is what I give to you today. It puts your spirit team at ease. It lets them feel a little bit better about you having a down day. Like, okay, the down days are not going to tear him or her down. And you make a commitment to having a better day. And you walk this journey with them. You talk to them. You ask them for assistance. You say, be with me, love me, take care of me. Things will get better over time. I cannot see God not rewarding that behavior. I cannot see God not coming through for people who have that kind of faith. I just can't see it. I cannot see it. I know that God doesn't move fast all the time. I know that bad things happen, but I just don't know God to not be a person who doesn't reward us. I don't know God to not be a person who doesn't take care of us in the darkest of hours. And however dark you think it is, it could be darker. That's not a threat, that's the truth. No matter how, and I say this all the time because it's the truth, no matter how dark it is in your life, it could always be darker. So you have to, in the darkest moment, show appreciation. That's why they say praise will confuse the enemy, because you continue praising God when things are horrible. They make it bad. But you continue praising God in those moments. You continue doing your best. You continue lifting God up in prayer. You continue exalting God. You continue feeling like there's nothing like God, because it's the truth. That is the truth. There is nothing like God. You know, whether people believe that or not. You know, I wish for everybody that they could feel that, but it doesn't always happen. So this is my message for today. Give God your heart. I give God my heart. I give God my soul. And the place where my heart was, that is where spirit inhabits. They have my heart. I give them my soul. That's an eternal thing. That's not a lifetime thing. That's an eternal thing. I've given them my life. This lifetime is theirs, not mine. What do they need? Because through them, I've gotten new life. So it would only make sense that I dedicate this life to them, because the last life was for me. It was a mess. I made a mess of it. So this life is for them. And I said to them, I have nothing left but what you guys have for me. I have nothing left in me but you guys and what you have for me. So this has been my walk. My walk has been not easy. Giving God your life and having God's protection, whatever, has not saved me from not going through persecutions and not going through hardships and not going through difficulties. It hasn't blocked that from me. But if anything, it's more so proven to me that God is there. So I don't have answers as to, well, why do bad things happen and all that. I don't. But what I can say is when bad things happen, I know where to run to. When things are not the greatest, I know how to find my peace. I know how to find God. And I just do what I can do with what I have. And I have a lot. I would say I even have too much. I have the Holy Spirit, my Holy Mother. I have my Father. I have a spirit team. I have spiritual friends. I have this full faith, and it feels like I just have this full life, and I just am not alone at all. Even though physically I may look that way, there is no isolation or loneliness in my life whatsoever. So anyway, that is my message. I hope someone finds, if not peace, then the ability to hold on. If not peace, then the strength to keep carrying on. And I want to say the messages that I've put on this YouTube thus far, I've given messages of strength, and I've given messages to keep going, and I've given messages to keep fighting, but it hasn't always been from the strongest place. A lot of the times these messages come from a very compromised place, because that's how you have to talk to yourself when you feel compromised. I've given messages to keep fighting when I have physically felt depleted. Like, the people listening to my messages know for a fact what they did to me the day before, the whole week, whatever. how they've beaten down on me. And for me to still come on and say that is because that's how I feel. So it's not about feeling the hope. It's not about the hope being there. It's about cultivating the hope. It's not about feeling like waking up. It's about knowing you gotta wake up. It's not about feeling like you can stand up under the burden of all this persecution. It's about knowing you have to and doing that work. It's not about feeling like it's easy for you to get up from under this anxiety. It's about knowing that you got to get up from this anxiety, under this anxiety, and doing the work and getting up. It's about knowing you got to take your life back into your hands. It's about knowing that you got to do the things that are difficult. It's about knowing that though you're persecuted, though you're sick, though every time you go outside there's a flock of people, one step at a time, incrementally, you get there. It has been incremental for me. It took 2 years. I see somebody else who also took 2 years out of their life to take that long journey, and it feels like there's not much progress to people on the outside because they don't know how badly you're being beaten down on. But a person who learns to walk through this amount of resistance has more muscle in them than people who just get up and walk and the only force against them is gravity. When you learn to walk under this kind of persecution, the minute this persecution is gone, Usain Bolt, you're out of here. The minute this persecution is gone, you're flying. That's the point. If you can be gang stalked and get over that anxiety, get over that mental hurdle, get over those bricks that are on your head, if you can get over that, because that's what I've had to do in 2 years. It's what I've volunteered my 2 years to do to myself. I've invested it. But I also know that even under this persecution, I'm going to push forward regardless of if it's here or not. And I understand that if I don't make it through what I got to make it through, when I go home, I can look at my parents in the eye and say, I did everything you asked me. I did everything I was supposed to. I tried my best. I emptied the tank completely. I did everything. I tried every door. More than once, I did everything. So if I come back and, it wasn't done, it wasn't for lack of trying, and at least I can have their respect. And at least I can have my own respect. If you're laying back and you're not pushing back, you're not finding the strength, you're not standing up, if you're not doing that work, then how hard did you actually try? Did you actually do the things that you're supposed to do? So I'm really going to wrap it up. Thank you. Have a great day. And remember that God loves you.